This is Autoline Daily, the show dedicated to enthusiasts of the global automotive industry. It feels like tariffs are all that anyone in the auto industry is talking about. And yesterday, President Trump put his tariff war on pause for the next 90 days after they threw the stock and bond markets into a meltdown. All imports going into the U.S. now face a 10% tariff. All that is, except for cars and their components. They still get hit with a 25% tariff. Automakers are practically begging the president for relief, so that's going to be the topic on Autoline After Hours this afternoon. We have Glenn Stevens, the executive director of Mish Auto, coming on the show, and he's got a lot of behind-the-scenes info he can share. Henry Payne from the Detroit News will also be on, so join John and Gary when the show goes live at 3 p.m. Eastern Time today. Stellantis is pulling TV ads after being accused of deceptive marketing. Truth in Advertising, or TINA, a nonprofit that follows misleading advertising, says Stellantis was not being truthful for claiming that its vehicles are built in the USA. It says the automaker doesn't really make vehicles in America, it merely assembles them. Because of that, TINA says the ads violate Federal Trade Commission rules, which stipulate that products marked as made in the USA should contain no or a negligible amount of foreign content. And since the vehicles featured in the ads have parts like engines, motors, and transmissions that are foreign made, TINA thinks it should label them as assembled in the USA, not built in the USA. Stellantis says it will adjust the language in the ads, and then it will continue running them on social media. BMW reported its global Q1 sales, and Volkswagen provided preliminary Q1 financial results, with a mixture of both good and bad news for both companies. And let's start with BMW. Sales were down 1.4%, mainly because of a big drop-off in China, though they were up almost everywhere else. The company sold 586,000 vehicles, including BMW, Mini, and Rolls-Royce. But the real story is with BMW's BEV sales, which were up an impressive 32%, accounting for 18.6% of its total sales. And EV sales should be even better this year. BMW will launch its new class EVs in a matter of months, which feature a dedicated EV platform that cuts weight by 10%, cost by 20%, adds 30% more range, and charges 30% faster compared to its existing EVs. Meanwhile, Volkswagen reported that its Q1 revenue rose by about 3% to 78 billion euros, but its operating profit dropped 39%. VW blames that drop on 600 million euros in CO2 fines, 200 million on restructuring costs at Cariad, its software company, 300 million euros that it's still paying for its diesel emission scandal, and from having to revalue the vehicles that it exports to the U.S. due to Trump's tariffs. But remember, these are just early figures, and those CO2 fines and tariffs could be negotiated down.
Developing today's vehicles. Issues can happen in an instant. When's the best time to solve a problem? The minute you know you have one. Meet Wireless Neovi Cloud, your secure, off-the-shelf solution empowering real-time collaboration for quick resolution. With Wireless Neovi Cloud, your team can prevent issues before they can escalate. Driver communication data and remote diagnostics to analyze and resolve your problems using OTA, allowing your executives oversight throughout the process. Wireless Neovi Cloud, your vehicle update solution in production and on the road. Intrepid Control Systems, driven by your data.
Do you want to see the automotive industry grow and thrive? So do we. That's why we dedicate our shows to providing the people in the industry with important data and information, and access to the people who are driving the industry forward with the guests that we bring on our shows and the interviews that we conduct. But we need your help to continue doing it. That's why I'm asking you to support Autoline with a YouTube or Patreon membership. It'll get you extra content that will be available only to members, but it will especially make sure that you and Autoline continue to drive the automotive industry forward.
We have a follow-up from a December 2024 report that Waymo is about to test vehicles on public roads outside of the U.S. for the first time. The autonomous ride-hailing company announced that it was going to Japan, and now it says it will start testing in Tokyo next week. It will first map the city with 25 human-operated Jaguar I-Paces with the goal of learning about the city's infrastructure and driving environment. After that, Waymo plans to test autonomous vehicles with a driver on board, but it declined to say when the mapping phase will be finished. As you may remember, GM and Honda planned to launch a self-driving service in Japan, but that fell apart after GM axed its Cruise autonomous unit. Nissan has partnered with an AI company called Wave to develop the next generation of its driver assistance technology, or what Nissan calls ProPilot. The automaker will integrate Wave's AI driver software into a new Lidar-Based system that Nissan claims will set new standards for autonomous driving because of things like the ability to avoid accidents. It looks like they're working on predictive maneuvers, like swerving around an object that comes flying into your lane or around a crash that's happening in front of you. Nissan says this next-gen ProPilot tech will launch from its 2027 fiscal year, which runs from April of 2027 to the end of March in 2028. Humanoid robots seem to be getting more and more attention in the auto industry. Automakers including Mercedes, BMW, Honda, Hyundai, and Tesla are all developing or testing them. And now the supplier Schaeffler is jumping into the market with plans to produce the robots for automakers. The company is showing off the components it can make for humanoids, including sensors for perception and electric motors and power electronics for limbs and joints. And along the same lines, Chinese automaker GAC revealed next-gen joints and servo drivers for humanoid robots that it developed in-house, which allow for a range of uses, from precise operations to heavy-duty movements. ChargePoint controls an estimated 61% of all public Level 2 EV chargers in the US, and now it's about to launch an all-new generation. Level 2 chargers range in output from 3 kilowatts up to 19.2, and these new units will operate at that highest level. ChargePoint claims that they can double the charging speed of a typical Level 2 unit with the ability to charge from 0 to 100% in as little as 4 hours. On top of that, they'll also offer bi-directional charging capability, as well as solar and battery storage compatibility and both NACS and CCS connectors. ChargePoint says the new units launch in Europe this summer, followed by the US at the end of this year. And speaking of bi-directional charging, that's one of the upgrades that Renault is making to the electric version of the Scenic. The vehicle now comes standard with an 11 kilowatt two-way charger, or there's an optional 22 kilowatt unit. This gives the Scenic the ability to power almost any device that runs on electricity or to send power back to the grid, which allows owners in France to lower their electric bill. Other new features include one-pedal driving and plug-in charge services, as well as upgrades to the seats, safety, and connectivity. New cars are really expensive in most of the world, and yet lots of people need a new car. So in the US, car buyers are going with much longer car loans in order to bring down their monthly payments. The average new car loan is for 5.8 years for an average of $41,473. But according to Edmunds, last year 20%, or 1 out of 5 car buyers, went with an 84-month loan, which is 7 years. And interestingly, the average loan duration for used cars is the same as new, 5.8 years, even though the average loan amount is $28,338, or over $13,000 less than a new car. Edmunds says these long loans show that consumers are financially stretched and that it will only get worse with more tariffs. But that brings us to the end of today's show. Thanks for tuning in.
Autoline Daily is brought to you by Bridgestone, solutions for your journey. Intrepid Control Systems, over-the-air engineering boost your game. Teijin Automotive Technologies, the formula for better mobility. And by
Knowing that a little rain won't slow down your day. That's what really matters. Bridgestone Turanza Quiet Track tires. Confident control in wet conditions.
There's nothing wrong with heavy metal.
Hey, lighten up.
But with world-class composite material, Teijin Automotive Technologies makes vehicles lighter, safer, and more eco-friendly.